Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm going to allow a few moments to let Zoom get everybody in here. Again, thank you all for joining. My name is Tom Hunter Pratt. I'm Multimedia Specialist for ICN. I've got a few announcements before we begin. At the end of today's webinar, you will all see a survey link pop up. Your feedback is very valuable to us, so we ask you go ahead and click on that link and answer the survey. Within 24 hours of today's webinar, you'll also receive a follow-up email. In that email, you'll see the same link for the survey. You'll also get a link for the recording of this webinar. You'll also receive a certificate within 24 hours, so be on the lookout for that in your email inbox. At the end of each panelist presentation today, we'll have a Q&A session, so if you will look on your Zoom control panel at the bottom of the screen, there'll be a button that says Q&A. If you'll click that button and see you've got some Q&A features there, you can ask our panelists questions, and when you do that, they'll see that, and we'll get to your questions as time permits. You also notice that as questions come through from the attendees, you'll see a like button or a thumbs up button there next to each question. If you really like that question, you can go ahead and click that, and that is an upvote, and that'll let us know that you really want that question answered, and we'll get to your questions as we can. All right, well, thank you again for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Janae.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the July School Nutrition Star webinar on highlighting school success and meeting the Transitional Nutrition Standards. I'm Janae Owens, an Education and Training Specialist with the Institute of Child Nutrition, and I will be moderating today's webinar. So I see folks are still coming in. I'll go ahead and reiterate some things that Tom Hunter has shared. So during today's webinar, all attendees are muted. There will be time for questions following each speaker's presentation. If you have a question, please type it into the question box on your screen. We would try to get to as many as possible, but due to some possible time constraints, every question may not get answered. And for those who have registered for the webinar, you will receive an email that contains the recording link and a link to the evaluation survey. We will also send out webinar certificates via email within 24 hours of the conclusion of the webinar. ICN collaborates with USDA to host monthly School Nutrition Star webinars to provide attendees with training, real-life strategies of program implementation, and best practices for use in action plans and/or goals. Training topics, free resources, and educational materials are also highlighted to assist school nutrition professionals with navigating through the enhanced responsibilities of school nutrition operations. The Institute has created a website for all of these materials and resources specifically related to the webinars. You can find this information at theicn.org/star. The topic covered in today's webinar fall under the key area nutrition and meets the USDA Professional Standards Code 1110 USDA nutrition requirements. Joining us on our panel today is Adam Russo, who is the director of the award-winning Office of School Food and Nutrition Services for Prince William County Public Schools, which is located in Nevada. As a graduate of Longwood University and a lifelong self-proclaimed restaurant brat, Adam transitioned from owning and operating restaurants to school nutrition 8 years ago. He believes in bringing the same exceptional guest experience, quality, and scratch cookery to school kitchens that were so successful in private enterprise. Annually, Adam spends time in all 101 schools and centers, tweaking processes to further increase efficiency and excellence while highlighting the efforts of the department's 1,000 employees. Over the past 3 years, the program's operations have caught the eye of experts around the country who have featured Adam in several publications, most recently Food Service Director Magazine's Operation of the Year. He enjoys being the cheerleader for the department and bragging about the people who do all the hard work. We also have Taylor Blake joining us, who is the District Registration Dietitian Nutritionist and Food and Nutrition Assistant Director for Forest County Schools located in Georgia. She has over 20 years of food service experience, with 6 of those years spent in school nutrition. Her background in food service ranges from a variety of settings, including fast food, family restaurants, and fine dining. Taylor holds an associate's degree in culinary arts from LaCourte and Blue, Atlanta, as well as her bachelor's and master's degree in nutrition from Georgia State University. She is a proud member of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics School Nutrition Services, DPG, where she is the current co-chair of the Education Committee. Thank you to our panelists for joining us today. And so at the end of this webinar, attendees will be able to identify strategies and best practices that assist in meeting the new transitional nutrition standards. And now I will turn it over to Adam.
Good afternoon, school nutrition professionals. My name is Adam Russo, and as Janae told you, I am the director for the Department of Food Nutrition for Prince William County Public Schools in Virginia. Before I get started with my presentation, I would also like to start by saying thank you to everyone for joining us, but most especially thank you for everything that you've done for our scholars for the last 2 years during the pandemic. I know that it's been a real challenge to do our roles and to be on the front line serving everyone. So I really appreciate what everyone has done for their respective communities, leading the way, ensuring that our youth is nourished so they be prepared to learn. I'm here today to talk to you about the Transitional Nutrition Standards that are going to be coming our way, set forth by the USDA, and give you some tips and tricks that hopefully can help set the table for you to make your job a little bit easier as you navigate these challenges with all of the other supply chain, staffing, and other unknown challenges that are going to be coming our way when the babies get back here. And some of you might already have them, but in a few short days for us here in Virginia. A full disclaimer about me, I am not a registered dietitian, so I will be speaking to you today as a business person first and coming to this from a different angle than Taylor. So hopefully you'll get a wide variety of tips and tricks. And again, as Janae said, there'll be time to answer any questions should you so have any. A little bit about our school division. We have 92,000 scholars in our 101 schools and centers. We are the second largest school division in the Commonwealth of Virginia. #1 in your hearts. We're about 40 miles south of Washington, D.C., so a quick 2-hour drive down I-95. Our school division is about 44% free and reduced, and new this year, we will have 37 schools on the community eligibility provision. So that is roughly a third of our buildings that will be completely free for all as we transition back to the free and reduced lunch program in the fall. We serve 30,000 breakfast and 60,000 lunches daily, so about 15 million meals annually. During the pandemic, we served about 23 million meals a year. We did the grocery kits and all that fun stuff like a lot of our peers. One of the things that I'm most proud of with our program, and I know that our team is most proud of, is the food that we serve. As you see on the screen here, these are some pretty gorgeous trays, and these were all things that I ate, quite frankly. I do a lot of eating in my role, but these are all things that, these are my trays. These were on the line, created. They're not, special or anything. They're special in that every scholar gets the same opportunity. But we're very proud of the product that we put forward and the amazing team that does it. We still scratch bake our bread. So if you look in that top right corner, that is homemade bread, flour, yeast, salt, sugar, oil, right? Easy, whole grain, rich, and quite frankly, delicious as it looks. We're making down to the bottom that strawberry shortcake and a number of our baked dishes ourselves daily in our kitchens at all 101 locations. And then the same thing goes, that nacho average lunch right there. It is not your average lunch because that corn salsa is made from scratch. The pico on top, the same. The ground beef made from raw beef and made in every single kitchen. And we're very proud of the meals that we serve. Fresh broccolini served to kindergartners, including my own, who really expand their palates because the lunchroom is the largest classroom in any school building. And we leverage that. One of our dietitians here worked with our Office of Instruction and created K-5 nutrition education lesson plans that correlate to our standards of learning that really elevated how our folks are seeing our staff members. My youngest son calls them lunch teachers, and we've kind of adopted that. I'm the head lunch teacher or head dishwasher, depending on the day. But we've really adopted that. And then we have 6 through 12 lesson plans as well. And we're trying to integrate as much of that into our programs in order for people to see us as the professionals that we are. We're a part of the education process, and we really want people to know that about us. All of our schools have a self-service garden bar where they get their fruit, their cold fruit and vegetable items, as well as some of our baked goods. And those are unlimited by choice for any fresh fruit or vegetable option. So if a kid wanted 32 apples, all we ask is that they eat all 32 apples. Or if you're my kid, you get a really big honking thing of pickles. But you know that when they have the autonomy to choose and the ownership over the things that they chose, that they're going to enjoy those products more. And so when a student comes through and sees those beautiful orange wedges on our screen, they are much more likely to consume those products because they chose them themselves. And maybe you want a little bit of this and a little bit of that, get a nice little smorgasbord like I like. And so that autonomy and choice really gives our scholars a level of ownership of our program, and it's their program, right? Because ultimately that is what it is. They're our largest stakeholder. We have about 60 tower gardens that we've partner with our school division at different locations to donate to different teachers. And all we ask is that our partners are good stewards, and that that our partners then give us some of those products back that we cook inside of our kitchens, so that the kids again get that ownership vibe for what we've got going on. And it works very nicely for our students to really feel a part of our programs. We have a clean label initiative as well. Similar to your Panera Bread, we've positioned ourselves in a manner so that our families know that we are serving the absolute best, right? Parents at the end of the day are trusting us to serve their babies, right? They are sending us their very best every single day. And so we must do our best for their best. And so we take very seriously the reduction in certain ingredients, using whole muscle meats, a lot of the same things that my peers on this call are doing already in their kitchens. A little bit different than we do is we brag about it all the time. I'm like a professional wrestler with a megaphone out there telling everybody all the time what it is we're doing. Because if we don't tell them, somebody else will, and their story might not be as good as ours, might not be as dynamic. And so I think that's very important for all of us to make sure that we're telling those stories, highlighting those beautiful trays, because these are our trays, but I am certain that of the 700-800 people on this call right now, that you guys are pumping out amazing restaurant quality food every day. And it's something to be proud of, and it's something to highlight. Why we're all here today is to talk about what changes to expect as we are transitioning into our new nutrition standards. For us here in Prince William County, we're going to have very little impact. I told you before that because we are baking items from scratch, we have a little more control over our products, but you can see obviously about what the standards are going to be. Whole grains have to be at least 80% whole grain enriched, the milk, unflavored milk, and it has to be fat-free or low. And then flavored has to be 1%. Sodium target 1 for NSLP and school breakfast, and then targets. Currently, we meet target 1A for all levels and cycles except for high school week 2. And the reason I'm saying we don't meet it, we meet the transitional, but not 1A. And it's because target 1A, we haven't had week 2 yet, right? Like a lot of people around the country and on this call, we have changed our menus and tweaked it a little bit. I'm a big proponent of running a cycle menu. I think that's obviously a best practice that's been shared by ICN, but we run a 2-week cycle menu. And it's just like when you buy the NSYNC album, nobody buys for the B-side. You want to hear bye, bye, bye. You want to hear the greatest hits. And we're in the same boat. So we're going to serve our kids their favorites. And so every single day we have 3 hot entree choices as well as a couple cold choices, but they are going to be their favorites. Always one of those favorites is going to be something that we've made from scratch to really delight them. I see one of my favorite pictures here with the babies looking at that fresh bread, right? Excited. And then right next to them is a popcorn chicken product we get from, I don't know, an hour away here locally in Virginia, which we're really proud about. And we partner with other school divisions to have this company make this product, especially for us, NAE meat, whole muscle meat, and really a high quality product that we can be proud to serve our scholars. I said that we don't meet 1A presently, and that's because our registered dietitian is going to analyze the data once we serve the meals. Our first day of school is the 22nd of August. If anybody is looking for a job, I'm hiring. We'll take you. I need helpers with washing dishes. I'm not able to go to all 101 schools every day, so I would love anybody's help. I'm not stealing. Don't get mad at me for poaching. Some tips and strategies that we use here. I was raised by a single mom, and we played lots of board games at home. I'm a busy-minded guy. I'm all over the place, right? I'm talking pretty slow today, but I move pretty quick. And whenever we played a game, my mom made it a point to make sure that we read the rules. And when you read the rules to a game, then you play to the edges, because us Russos were winners, and we always play to win. And so you get the game, and it's Monopoly, Game of Life, whatever game you're playing. You find those rules and you play the rules to the edges to win. And especially in what we're doing, right? This is a game as well. Everything's a game, just like Mary Poppins said, right? You make everything a game and it's fun again. And so we are playing those games to the edges so that we are winning for our clientele, right? For our guests, our babies, right? These are big babies all the way up to 18, 19 years old. But it's very important that we play the game to the edges. And what I mean by that is there are rules from the USDA by which we are governed, right? And we have to make sure that we're getting those reimbursements for federal dollars. And we have to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And of course, I think to a certain degree, our nutrition standards have become table stakes, and our families expect that we're going to serve nutritious, healthful meals for the students to properly nourish them for learning. But there's room on the edges there, right? And so the big one, I think, and the biggest one that I hear from my peers as I go to food shows, your every single day doesn't have to meet the standard. That's not the rule. The rule is a weekly average. So if on Monday you're a little high, and on Tuesday you're a little low, and entree 1 is a little high and entree 2 is a little low, et cetera, across the week, you average all those things out. And when the weekly average comes out and you're below or above the standard, that's then the rule. It's not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's a week by week analysis. And I think that a lot of people get a little caught up in the detail, and they're trying to make sure that every day fits. And it's not an everyday thing. Every day you should be serving yummy, banging meals for kids, but every day doesn't have to meet the sodium requirement. The weekly average does, right? Some of the things that we are doing to make those weekly averages hit. Obviously, I think I mentioned it with the sodium, scratch cooking, and we don't serve any canned vegetables here. It's not a disparaging remark about canned vegetables. They can be delicious, peak ripeness. If there's any canned vegetable lobbyist here, I apologize. I don't really apologize. We just don't serve them. But it's because they do have a higher sodium content. If you're using fresh veg, you're going to then be able to manage the level of sodium that's in that product, because you're going to be one putting it on. And quite frankly, fresh vegetables, especially the closer you get them to where you are in season, they're just going to be yummier, right? They're going to require less seasoning. They're going to require less salt to really bring that flavor out. And so that's a little tip that we use, because you really, canned corn and a few other products, you can really get caught up in a higher sodium content than you would have otherwise because of the brine that they're being stored in. And same thing, I got to go to this slide because I just absolutely love it. One of the other things that we're doing, it's because we're controlling the ingredients, right? We're making those bread items from scratch. We're actually mixing in big old Hobart mixers. And I'm trying not to shout out brands. I just have 104 of those things. That you see the fresh broccolini in the bottom. At the top, that's our rosé bolognese. The Italian boy here, we had to bring a little Italian flair to some of our scratch made dishes. That's one of our fruit crisps. I think that's peaches, it looks like. And again, that's made from scratch. And so we're controlling the amounts of all ingredients that are going into those while still pumping out really yummy foods that our kids can be excited about. Because at the end of the day, you can't do a nutrient analysis on no food served, right? You need to serve food first before you start worrying about, oh gosh, does this meet that? Does that meet this? Let's make some yummy food, right? Like that's why we all do this. We don't do this to make perfect nutrition. We do this to make perfect trays and smiles and give people an opportunity to learn. Whoops, one too many. For the new innovative approaches, I think everyone's always looking for that next big thing. Like what's the snazzy new toy that's going to make this easier, and what's the magic secret sauce and all that stuff. And I'm unfortunately the wrong guy for that. I'm a kind of a meathead at heart, and I kind of think there's only the same 3 chords of music, right? You hear the same thing over and over again, and food's the same thing. My family has been in the restaurant business since before I was born. And we sold pizza and pasta and Italian dishes, and none of that stuff really changed, right? In 100 years, it's kind of all the same. And you get cooked in a brick oven with wood still and all those fun things. Now you can control what goes into those products. You can control the level of care that you exhibit while making those products. But as far as like the new shiny toy, the fancy new fake meat thing or whatever it is, that those are just not the way that we go about that. One of the big things that I like is to lean into what you're good at, right? I've showed you and I bragged about it. I brag about it every single day. We really lean into our baking, into our scratch bake yumminess, because that's something we're already really good at. And everyone's good at something, right? If it's presentation, if it's marketing, but really if it's your cookery and some of the types of cuisine that you're into, right? Ethnic cuisine, whatever regionality you are, lean into those things, lean in to what you're already good at. And what you'll end up finding is you always should work on your weaknesses. Don't get me wrong, right? But at the same time, you should really work on your strengths and lean into them, because the more you lean into your strengths, the less people are going to notice some of those weaknesses. And it's going to make it just a little bit easier on your staff. And something that I'm a big proponent of, and I've worked really hard. This is my 6th year with our school division, my 9th year in the school division. My middle son was born on my first day on the job in the school business. So I know how many years I've been doing this because of how many years he's been alive. So thank you, Parker, for keeping me on track. Otherwise, I don't know what yesterday's date was. But a thing I've been a big proponent of as I've been in this industry is ensuring that we run our business as a business, right? We are a not-for-profit by tax designation only, right? We are a business and we need to run our operations as such. And so something that we've done here is we've really beefed up our central office staff to ensure that our folks on the front lines are superheroes, people that are the absolute very best at what they do. They make amazing food. They remember every kid's name. They have spotless kitchens that you could eat off of the floor in, and I have, right? We try to take that off their plates. And so here, since I've been here in 6 years, we've probably added about 15 central office positions to directly support our schools. And that's whether it be I hired an assistant director or different coordinator positions or direct supervisors of kitchens to provide that level of support, to our managers directly, to our associates, but also to our internal customers, our principals, our teachers, our parents, right? And especially our guests, our babies, our kids, providing direct levels of support, customer support, contact, all of those pieces. And then you can take that work off of your staff's plates so they can focus on making the yummy plates, right? The more you can take off of your frontline employees' plates and the more you can shoulder the burden at the central office, I think makes it that much more simple for them to follow the recipes and the things that are going to hold the standard that we're going on. And I love these pictures. These were from the pandemic when we were doing grocery kits. I love the pictures because our team is the best. And I love it because we're no longer standing outside handing meals. So it's a nice memory that we don't do that anymore. Additional tips, like I said before, meathead at heart, don't overthink it, right? Serve food you would eat. Some of our vendors used to not love it. They probably still don't love it. They just lie to me because we buy a lot of food, but they didn't love it when they came because I try everything. And if I'm not going to eat it, I'm not going to serve it to anybody's kid. And I give lots and lots of feedback. So a vendor would come and they'd serve whatever their new whatever was. And it was like, not so great. Next, right? Or, oh gosh, this looks weird. Next. And I'm a big kid. Do what the kids do, right? If they send you an enchilada, how do your kids eat the enchilada? Do they just pick it up off the tray with a fork and knife and eat it just so perfectly? Or do they open it up and dig around in it and play with it? And they're like, ooh, that meat looks funny. And that's who I am. I take the corn dog nugget and I pull the meat out and I'm like, ooh, that thing looks funny. We can't serve that. I'm going to be on TV. They're going to call the police. It's a whole thing, right? And so you really want to pay attention to what you're eating, but kind of have a little whimsy to it. Be like one of your students and really get after it. It's easy for me because I'm a big kid at heart. But yummy first, right? Yummy first. I mentioned before that we leveraged a vendor partner with lots of friends, and that's where I say strength in numbers, to produce a product that met our needs. There was a previous group of like-minded directors that got together and said, hey, we're looking for some different stuff, right? Because I think a lot of you know, when you see products from vendors, they shop off the same shelf, right? They're like, here you go. Here's the here's this shelf for K-12, and you really only ever see the K-12 stuff. We don't want the K-12 stuff. I want the K-12 stuff too, don't get me wrong. But we really want to see the other stuff. We go to the National Restaurant Association show and some other different venues to see different products. And our vendors know now, hey, let's show them this thing that we would have never showed a school before, because they might make it work. It might be applicable. And then, of course, they know they're going to go tell someone, hey, Prince William bought it. Hey, Prince William bought it. You might want this, right? With the strength in numbers, though, it doesn't matter how many kids you're serving. Everybody on this call is doing heroes work. If you've got 4 schools or 104 schools, or if you're, LA Unified and you've got 1,004 schools, all of your work is important. But if you've got 4 and it's hard for you to get something in, a product in with your broadline distributor, work with a couple neighbors. Get together and say, hey, look, we both want this high quality chicken tender product, or we both want this up level of whatever the product might be. Work together, come up with some specs together that work for both of you, or 4 of you, or 8 of you, 12, whatever the number is, right? Strengthen numbers, because at the end of the day, there are more school cafeterias in America than there are McDonald's in the world, right? And so when we operate more with a franchise model and use our resources and leverage those resources, I think we can be really successful. And so again, we're pretty big. We don't always have to partner to get the things we want. I'm also pretty obnoxious, and so I'm pushy, and they're like, yeah, just leave us alone here. Here's the thing you want. But you really want to leverage those relationships to get the best possible product for your kids. And at the end of the day, it's going to make your job easier when you're going to play the game and doing those weekly averages. And it's a game, right? Everything's a game for me. I'm a competitive guy. I'm most competitive with myself, right? Not competitive with everyone else in this call. You guys can all compete for second place. But don't play the game backwards. You want to menu what the kids want to eat first, then make changes afterwards based on the standards, right? And so our dietitian, she'll go and make a big menu change board. And we're not thinking at all about the nutrient standards. That's not where our head is. We're thinking, does it make sense to serve nachos with chicken sandwiches? And it's like, no, probably not. How about nachos with quesadilla? Okay, that kind of makes more sense. And the side, baked beans, I don't know. What about a nice elote or something, like something more on that vibe. And so we're building our menu for appearance, for presentation, for back of house service, for those things, but those are all second. Yumminess is first. And then third is the nutrient standards, because sometimes with analyzation and with the averaging, you can make that work on the back end. And so we go through the whole game of it first, and then it's square peg, round hole. And then sometimes you hit that square peg as hard as you can until it goes through the round hole. Sometimes you got to change the hole and figure it out. A lot of times you find that it lands itself appropriately, because sometimes when you swim with the stream, it's just a lot easier, right? And so we find that as we've menued something that makes sense, both logically, right, from an order of operations, but then also logically it falls in logically rather with how the nutrient standards should go. Last but not least, should you ever want to look at any of those beautiful trays again, or any more of this face and bald head, I am available here on Twitter at PWCS Nutrition. The Adam Russo is my tag personally, and we're always posting fun stuff, bragging about our team, some of the cool stuff we're doing. We'll post something about this because this is awesome. I love sharing. And then, like I tell all of our peers, rip it off and duplicate it, right? That's the original R&D. If you see a post of ours that you think is clever, you guess who didn't see our post? Any of the parents in your school division. We're in Virginia. They're not following us. Maybe they are. But like if you're in Wyoming, make the same post, put your picture in, and steal the wins, because we're on the same team here, guys, right? Like I said, we can be competitive like for fun parts, but at the end of the day, you're not taking meals from us. I'm not taking meals from you. We're only helping each other. And so if you can help to raise the tide, that will only benefit all of us. And quite frankly, I love to see people's yummy trays. And so any opportunity to see people's yummy trays is fun for me. I've seen a bunch of question and answers, and I know Tom had said to start going there. I'm going to switch it over to the most upvotes, and I will start answering questions as we go and reading through it. I'm going to read them out loud so you know what I'm going with. Do you feel losing the program that allowed all students to access lunch and breakfast at no cost will adversely affect your lunch program along with the rising cost meals will suffer? No, meals will not suffer. Point blank, period. That is a no-go for us. I am very fortunate in Prince William County to have an incredibly supportive superintendent and board that would never allow us to be impacted financially by those things. If that was so the case, we happen to have such a great team that won't be our issue. But yes, I think that our programs will be adversely impacted, right? That's factual, that every student should eat. Nobody's ever asked the kid before he got on a school bus how much his parents made, right? Like that's not real life. You just get on the school bus and get a ride to school on the cheese wagon, right? And lunch should be the exact same thing. Do I think we'll serve less meals? Yeah, a few less meals. We were pretty close to max capacity before the switch. And so I don't suspect we will go down very far, quite frankly, because we serve pretty yummy meals at a pretty darn good cost. And I think there's a real value. And I told you, I'm a salesperson at heart. I think we've done a very nice job of selling our program and building equity with our families. And so our families still trust us, right? At the end of the day, we're in the care business, guys, right? Like I do the suit and tie. I'm the Chick-fil-A cow. I'm Dave Thomas to our Wendy's. I make sure families know there's a face to our program so that they know that there's real people doing real work with them. But our team is the real hero here. And our parents, they know and appreciate our team because they come to work every day presenting themselves just so, making food with care, presenting their lines just so. And all of those details matter in what it is we do every single day. I saw someone ask a question about our menus. I have the website right there, pwcsnutrition.com. Our menus are there as well. Oops, it keeps rolling on me because you guys are asking a lot of questions. There we go. I made it easier. Somebody asked, how do you do dessert? I was told those rarely are allowed, as I think dessert should always be allowed. So, yep. So I'm going to answer that right now. So with desserts, we are serving a half cup fruit component with all of our dessert items. So that lovely strawberry shortcake you just saw, that has a half cup of IQF frozen strawberries from the USDA right on top. And then the whole grain shortbread component with it is not a throwaway, but it's an extra, it's a bonus, right? What nutrient analysis software do you use to analyze? Have you experienced any challenges meeting in the target? We use MCS, that is a Heartland program. And no, not a lot of challenges, quite frankly, again, because we've controlled kind of the controllables, right? I'm a John Maxwell guy, circle of control, circle of influence, and you got to work on the stuff you can control first, not the stuff you can influence, right? And so we really try to control the controllables. Your condiments, some of those things we can really run. How do we recruit, train, and retain employees to make the bread products from scratch? They're encountering have little knowledge of working in the food service or in schools. Yeah, I'll say that the easiest part of that is that we've always done that. When I got here, they were already doing it. I was like, you guys are baking bread? How come nobody knows? You should be telling people all the time. And we kind of hyped it up a little more. And we've leaned into it, like I said, so we're baking more often. I think that if you have high standards and expectations, people want to meet them, right? People are proud to come work for us. They're proud that when the kid comes through the lines, they're excited to see their meals and the kids brag. They're like, oh my gosh, you see this bread? Like that's they got it going on, right? And so we had some neighbors that were having some social media coverage because their meals weren't so great during the pandemic. And we had families, teachers, kids, parents, all posting pictures of our meals like, man, you should see how good we've got it. And that's something I'm really proud of because we don't really police our social media like that anymore because our constituency does it for us. They're out there telling people, hey, that's not what this looks like. This is what a meal looks like. Your kid just, took a bite out of it first or whatever it is, right? Because kids do some interesting things. Again, lunch menus, I've answered this. I'm going to answer it again. Lunch menus are available on pwcsnutrition.com. I think they're not posted yet. Check back in like a week or two for next August. Right now, it's like our summer menu. So it's a little more of a truncated version. But check PWCS Nutrition early and often, just because I'll take the clicks, right? How does this affect your labor costs? our labor costs are pretty good, honestly. We make up on the labor cost on the ingredient side, right? If you're buying something that's pre-made, you're paying the labor cost, right? That shouldn't be a newsflash for any pros on this call, but like if you're buying something that's already pre-made, you paid the labor cost. Like, surprise, you just paid somebody else's labor cost, right? So we're paying our labor, and then we're also able to offer more full-time positions for it, more benefited positions for it. Like we have a baker in every kitchen, and they're a full-time employee, and so they're more likely to come to work every day, right? And so that's part of what that benefit is. Bread recipes and shortbread recipe, I would love those too. No, I'm just kidding. I have them. Feel free to email. Feel free to email for recipes. We love sharing any and all recipes. Yep, all recipes I will share. What is our staffing level right now? We're about 15% down, and it's actually a little. Hopefully, it's 15%. I say because we hired people this summer, but as you all know, we do not know who comes to work until they don't come to work. Janae's going to kick me off. It's good.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and move it along. But hey, please answer questions via Q&A box. Yes, Adam's going to stick around. So yeah, he can answer more questions via the Q&A box. But we're going to go ahead and move it over to Taylor.
I'm going to start typing answers now, guys. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for all you do for our babies, guys. You are the best.
Thank you guys for joining us, and thank you, Adam, for that wonderful presentation. It says that I am still viewing Adam's screen. That is strange. We're going to do that. There we go. Tech gremlins are awesome. So thank you guys for joining us this afternoon. As Janae said earlier, I am Taylor Blake, and I am the Assistant Director for the in-district dietitian for Forsyth County Schools here in Georgia. I am in my 6th year as a school nutrition dietitian. Full disclosure, I am brand new to my district. A mere 4 weeks ago, I took a promotion and moved to Forsyth County. Prior to this, I actually worked for Gwinnett County as their district dietitian and nutrition support coordinator. My experience there actually will help me as I guide my new home into the transitional standards over the school year. As such, you will hear me talk a little bit about both districts. So here we have a little glimpse into Forsyth County. The advantage of coming from the largest county in the country, or sorry, largest county in the state to the 5th largest means that I actually have a wealth of food tools now in my background that will actually help further shape Forsyth into the future. Forsyth is growing rapidly and was actually named the 6th fastest growing county with over 100,000 residents in 2021. We do have 53,000 students in our 42 schools. Forsyth is traditionally an affluent county with about a 13% free and reduced rate as the beginning of the pandemic. This rate will probably change as we start collecting applications again this year. And as we grow, our student body demographics are also changing. All of these factors merge together to inform how we're going to approach our menu offerings. So what exactly do the transitional standards mean for Forsyth, and how are we going to navigate the changes that are being implemented? So due to a vast array of changes with the school nutrition lunch and breakfast program requirements over the past few years, feels like we've kind of gone back and forth a little bit with what we can do and what we can't do. They made the decision to, before I arrived, to stick with the SY22 standards with the 100% whole grain rich, target 1 sodium, 1% unflavored milk, and then the skim flavored and unflavored milk. We're thankful for the USDA has allowed some wiggle room for the transitions, especially around whole grains. but we have a plan. So the culinary integrity and acceptability of our menus is vitally important. And in focusing on these as your primary indicators of quality and your standards, this will actually help you in making these regulations work for you, which is why you see that bullet point number 1, make the regulations work for you. This is what I did in Gwinnett and what I will be doing in Forsyth. There's a big difference between menus that are simply compliant and those that are compliant and culinarily sound. So don't be afraid to push the boundaries of what you're doing, kind of like Adam was also saying. So long as you're still compliant, your creativity will go a long way with the students that you're serving. When we must change our menus due to regulation changes or updates, being particular in what we serve, when it is served, and how it is served will preserve that integrity and quality of your menus. In other words, be super choosy and really scrutinize your menus, scrutinize your bids and what samples you're choosing to allow to be brought in. That's how I was able to move the menus in my previous district to these transitional standards and how I will enforce them here in my new home. So how are we super choosy? First thing we did was to note those items that would be regarded as the non-negotiables for our districts and for our students. So you need to determine what your non-negotiables are for your area. Maybe your students are rebelling against whole grain pizza crust. Maybe that's what you choose as your enriched product in that case. Of course, regionally, there are going to be differences in what our students will accept regarding the whole grain versions of products that they are consuming outside of school. Our largest competitors are going to be the quick serve restaurants, the C-stores, and the fast food restaurants in the area. Those restaurants set the tone for what our students picture in their minds when they think of biscuit or when they think of a rice bowl, etc. In the South, biscuits are one of those areas where whole grain rich was just not going to fly. If it doesn't taste like Granny's, it ain't worth it. So pasta and rice are a close second. They prefer the enriched version here in our state. So also too, from an operations standpoint, it's more cost effective and it behaves better on the lines when it's an enriched product for these particular items. Whole grain pastas and rice love to soak up the moisture and sauces that they're mixed in. And this results in products that look dry and just gross, which again goes back to that culinary integrity of the items that we serve on our lines. So with that in mind, your whole grain rich requirement, use those items that are generally accepted within your student body as where you focus that area. And then this 20% enriched those are your non-negotiables. That is where you're going to put in your enriched products, should you choose to use those. And it's going to vary by region and by student body. As far as sodium, again, I'm probably going to end up reiterating a lot of what Adam was saying. I personally am thankful that the target 1A sodium requirements are more achievable, I think, instead of going straight to target 2. I think it would give our students a chance to adapt to a lower sodium menu offering as opposed to going straight into something that's a little more drastic. I do know that manufacturers are working towards reducing sodium in some of their products. Biscuits, again, I'm biscuit crazy today, are one item that I'm seeing more and more reduced sodium versions coming around on the market. Unfortunately, both the whole grain and the enriched version of that product tends to be higher in sodium just because of the way those formulas are. If you look at your sodium limits as your weekly budget for that area, it does help with balancing your menus, which I know from experience is easier said than done sometimes. And then you can offset those higher sodium entrees and sides with those that are lower in sodium. And it's easier to keep flavoring your foods while meeting the regulations set forth by the USDA. Identify those menu items that are naturally high in sodium and those that have higher levels of sodium compared to others. These will be your deli meats. These will be your cheeses, your cheese sauces, your milk, which we will discuss next, and those types of items. During the pandemic, we certainly made the switch over to more prepackaged and IW low labor items to ease our kitchens and their labor shortages and just to help them out so that they could produce meals for our students and keep them fed. Now that we're starting to settle down a little bit more, this is the time to incorporate more quick scratch and homemade items. I'm going to echo a lot of Adam in this particular part of my presentation because I too have that philosophy of quick scratch homemade You have better control over what you're putting into that product. And so it's going to work for you just a little bit better. But don't be afraid to use salt also. You use it when it's needed. And rule of thumb is do not serve bland food. Use your resources that your state departments have, chefs, if you have them on staff or are able to contact them, peers, the ICN, the USDA, and others to help find ways to flavor your food without having to add a ton of salt. Granulated garlic, for example, is your friend. There are some items that are going to need salt. Tomato sauces, use them there. Use them wisely, but just don't cut them out altogether because that's also gross. And as far as milk, milk is a bit of a wild card. As a component, it is straightforward. Nothing needs to be done to it in most cases and is easy to make available. However, given that milk is a required component in our meal patterns, they end up being a dedicated source of calories, sodium, and sometimes fat for the 1% varieties that will affect our weekly averages. Due to this, my old district and my current district, we're going to continue to use the previous guidelines using only skim flavored milks in addition to skim and 1% unflavored. It just makes more sense to focus on the entrees and sides as the stars of our menu over milk. And I'm not hating on milk at all. Like, this isn't to say that it's a throwaway component, but the fat, saturated fat in those items that, those versions that it has, and calories are generally going to be more cost effective and more of a better return on your investment spent elsewhere in your nutrition targets budget, if you want to think of it in that way. For those districts, though, that you do choose to move to a 1% flavored milk, because that's what your student body has grown accustomed to because you were able to do it before, I would, and this is just my 2 cents, advise that you determine what areas you don't mind cutting from in order to remain compliant with the other nutrition targets we're held to. A lot of times, the milk cartons that I see in the districts that I used to work in, and I'm sure I'll see it again once I start getting back into schools here in my new district, that is one of the items that it may not get drunk at all. It may only halfway be drank. I mean, it's going to end up in the trash can 9 times out of 10. And so I would rather focus my dollars and my nutrition budget on areas that are more chatter worthy. You're not going to see on Snapchat a picture of a milk carton, but you will see a picture of an entree of food. So that being said, I'm going to open it up and do some questions. AMA, for those of you that don't know, means ask me anything, but ask me anything that is, school nutrition related. So do you offer grab and go breakfast? And if you do, what are your menu items? So in my old district, yes, we did do grab and go, and we did a whole bunch of the same things that you're normally seeing because breakfast happens so fast. In my new district, there's a little bit of both. I don't know exactly, I can't speak exactly to a lot of that because I'm brand new. And then what are my favorite ways to add flavor to veggies without adding too much sodium, fat, etc.? Perfect. I love this question, Tiffany. Thank you so much. So favorite ways to add flavor to veggies is by using your spice blends. So there's different spice blend resources out there. There's the Healthy Kids Collaborative with the Culinary Institute of America. They've got some recipes of blends on how to flavor your foods without adding those extra nutrition targets in there. So the fats, the salts, those types of things. You can season, like I said, with granulated garlic is one of my favorites to go to because it does give a little bit of that almost texture of having the salt without adding that extra sodium. Students like the taste of whole grain items. I'm curious about what you do to make these items desirable. Okay, so there are going to be some items that do lend themselves better to having a whole grain application. Manufacturers have actually gotten pretty good at making these palatable, but there's also texture issues when it comes to whole grain. They can be a little bit chewier. So making them desirable is going to be finding the ones that actually resonate with your students in that what are they picking up and what do they not mind doing. Don't be afraid to go out there and have those focus groups. Talk to the students, look at your sales reports, what's moving, what's not, and then make those informed decisions. As far as students liking the taste, it's going to be as, it's going to be as variable as one student to the next. And then there's, I'll answer that one. And so I think that is all for me. I appreciate everything, all your questions you guys have asked. I appreciate you guys for attending this webinar, and thank you to the ICN for asking me to come speak. I will turn it back over to Janae.
Thank you so much to both of our panelists for joining us today. Before we conclude today's webinar, I just want to share some announcements that we have. So the ICN has prepared the Back to School Toolbox for returning new and aspiring school nutrition professionals. You can plan professional development for you and your staff using ICN's Toolbox, conveniently organized by staff categories that include frontline staff, managers, menu planners, and directors. Each category provides links to the ICN trainings, the eLearn online courses, and virtual instructor-led training opportunities, and also the ICN resources that are available for download. So check out that Back to School Toolbox when you get a chance. And also the Shaking It Up resource page provides a range of educational resources and training materials. These resources provide tangible, practical guidance for school nutrition professionals to implement sodium reduction best practices and strategies in their school food service operations. Also available are the sodium training worksheets, which provide a deep dive into a sodium reduction topic and related strategies. It also features scenarios or school success stories to demonstrate sodium reduction best practices and include activities to test and reinforce key concepts. These training worksheets can be used for individual learning and can also be incorporated into school staff trainings on sodium reduction topics. We still have some openings for our August virtual instructor-led training sessions. Please visit the icn.org/field/ for available sessions. The ICN is rolling out the fall and winter virtual registration on August 1. So if you will, you can subscribe to the ICN newsletter to receive notifications about registration availability. With a new look, the eLearn provides self-paced, free online learning for child nutrition professionals. It offers users the flexibility to complete courses in multiple sessions on desktop, laptops, or mobile devices. The all-new eLearn at ICN mobile app is available for download on the Apple App Store and Google Play. So visit the ICN's eLearning portal to explore the available self-paced courses that are available currently. And that concludes our announcements for this webinar. As final reminders, this webinar has been recorded and it can be viewed on the ICN website at theicn.org/star. The webinar certificates will go out in the next 24 hours. Please complete the evaluation survey at the end of this webinar, as ICN appreciates your feedback. And in closing, to our panelists, thank you so much for sharing your tips and best practices. And thanks to all the attendees for joining us today. I hope you guys have a great day.